On the battlefield, there are many unwritten rules and conventions that soldiers are expected to follow. One such rule is that captured enemy soldiers have the right to withhold military secrets when interrogated. Another guideline often advised by military medics is for soldiers to avoid eating a heavy meal before going into combat. If a soldier sustains an abdominal injury from shrapnel or a bullet and requires surgery, having a full stomach can greatly complicate the operation and increase the risks involved. An interesting unwritten rule dictates that combatants on both sides must wear military uniforms and not civilian clothing. The rationale behind this is that if a combatant wears civilian attire, they could potentially be mistaken for a civilian by the enemy, and harming civilians is generally prohibited on the battlefield. By wearing uniforms, both sides maintain fairness and clearly identify each other as legitimate military targets. Furthermore, according to the Geneva Conventions, medical personnel are obligated to provide care to wounded soldiers regardless of their allegiance. If an injured enemy soldier is brought to a field hospital, medical staff must treat them without discrimination. Another convention outlined in the Geneva Conventions prohibits firing upon parachuting pilots from downed aircraft. The reasoning is that once a pilot has bailed out and abandoned their primary weapon, the aircraft, they are effectively disarmed and considered to have surrendered. The Geneva Conventions state that pilots should not be fired upon while descending by parachute and should be given an opportunity to surrender upon landing. However, this rule applies specifically to pilots and not to other airborne infantry, who may be engaged at any time during their descent. Notably, Japan was an exception to this rule during World War II, as they frequently targeted and killed both Allied and even their own parachuting pilots, considering them cowards lacking the warrior spirit for abandoning their aircraft. It's important to note that these are merely unwritten rules and conventions, and their observance varies among different military forces. Some adhere strictly to these guidelines, while others may disregard them entirely. Nevertheless, the majority of combatants generally respect and follow these unwritten codes of conduct on the battlefield.